This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You are now entering the Stone Zone. Well, the authorities have arrested the alleged assassination of Charlie Kirk, the founder of the Turning Point USA student movement. He has been identified and apprehended. He's a 22-year-old former Utah State University student named Tyler Robinson. He was, we are told, turned in by his father, who he reportedly confessed to, and told that he was the individual who assassinated Kirk. Now, Robinson appears to have had a nice, normal family life, lived in a nice suburban home, seemed to be a normal young man from the looks of it. His father worked in law enforcement for decades, and his mother bragged about his great grades in an ACT store in social media posts, but then apparently Robinson, they would have us believe, was tainted by radical leftist ideology. His family has said that Robinson was radicalized in recent years, espousing a hatred of conservatives, particularly taking an ire towards Charlie Kirk, who he described as full of hate. As someone who wrote a New York Times best-selling book on the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the man who killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ, also a man who has just finished a book on the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan, as someone who has studied in great detail the two attempted assassinations of President Donald Trump. I've also looked at the attempted assassination of President Harry S. Truman, the attempted assassination of Gerald Ford, and yes, an assassination attempt against Richard Nixon in Miami that was reported by FBI operative Gerald Hemmings. I am loath to this rush to judgment. A government that will lie to you about those horrific events will lie to you about this horrific event. I'm particularly disturbed looking at the evidence that was presented to us this morning regarding these messages to this young man, Robinson, on Discord, which is a gaming app, but also has a message feature. These messages regarding the disposition of the rifle that was allegedly used in the murder of Kirk appear to me to be directives, which would in turn mean that there are more than one person involved in the death of Charlie Kirk, therefore a conspiracy. God, I hate that word. But that's what it appears to. I notice people like Mike Adams, the health ranger. He's a very, very smart guy, raising a number of significant questions about the narrative that we've been told. Very soon you're going to see some say, nothing else to see here, let's move along. I hope that we have a trial, but I also hope to learn far more about this. It's clear to me that if Robinson was the shooter, he was radicalized by a progressive left Democrat Party and the mass media. He would have heard nonstop for years that every Republican or every conservative was a Nazi, a fascist, a white supremacist, and they deserve to have their freedoms ripped away from them. Perhaps he finally heeded that call. The young man does not just have to deserve to be held accountable for the murder of Kirk, if indeed he's guilty of that murder, but he also, thousands of Democrat politicians, media pundits, and academics who have spread this hateful propaganda against the Make America Great movement for years. The blood would also be on their hands. It's time for us to get serious about destroying those who would destroy our Constitution and our freedoms. This is Alinskyism. I've talked about it here many times in the Stone Zone. Saul Alinsky, the famous communist operative and apparatchik, who said, always accuse your opponents, your enemies, of that which you yourself are actually doing. Therefore, I suggest to those here in the Stone Zone, when you see all of these charges and accusations, always keep in mind that the radical left always accuses us of that which they themselves are doing. It was Hillary Clinton and her circle who were making millions of dollars from the oligarchs around Vladimir Putin. So they turned around and they blamed Donald Trump for involvement with the Russians regarding his very first election in 2016. We have since learned that that was a complete canard, a hoax, at the highest levels of our government, an op in which the full authority of the United States government and the incredible capability of our intelligence agencies were utilized to put forward two pieces of information that were completely fabricated. The so-called Steele dossier, that was the famous report that falsely accused Donald Trump of dallying with Russian prostitutes in Moscow while visiting there as a private businessman, and the false claim that the Democrat National Committee had been the target of an online hack by Russian intelligence. There is, I say yet again, no evidence whatsoever to support that claim. In fact, the forensic evidence, as put forward by Bill Binney, the CIA's former top counterintelligence IT guy, all of the evidence would be to the contrary. All of the evidence would indicate that to the extent that information was stolen from the Democrat National Committee and was published online by WikiLeaks, it was downloaded to some kind of portable drive and taken out the back door. I, again, don't want to rush to judgment here in the question of Tyler Robinson. He may, in fact, be the man who committed this horrific crime. But the fact that there were patsies in the crowd, that two different individuals wasted the valuable time of law enforcement by quickly claiming that they were the killer, this, I think, is highly suspicious. Also, the smooth getaway by Robinson, who lived almost 250 miles away from the University of Utah, but who escaped unimpeded. This is, once again, indications of assistance from someone, Confederates, I think. So I'm going to continue to study this case. I'm not prepared to give an opinion in terms of whether I believe that they have gotten the right man. I pray that they have. My heart bleeds for Charlie Kirk and for his family in this shocking and tragic turn of events that sent shockwaves across the entire Trump movement and the nation at large. Charlie Kirk was a tireless champion of American freedom and a visionary, founding a student organization, Turning Point USA. It's amazing to me, looking at my email, my text messages, my phone calls, how many young people he touched. How many people of my age tell me that their children or grandchildren were upset by the murder of Kirk? How many vigils were held across the country in his honor? So this man was cut down in the prime of life simply because he was effective on behalf of his ideas. This is a very sad time for America, but it is also a time in which we, who are supporters of the president and supporters of his America First agenda and the total turnaround of the ship of state, cannot be goaded into violence, cannot be goaded into overheated rhetoric, cannot be goaded into civil unrest that they will turn around and then blame on us. We saw this in January 6th. We need not see it again. So I urge cooler heads at this time, but I'd like to see a lot more information before I reach my own conclusion. Meanwhile, individuals who've celebrated the assassination of Charlie Kirk publicly on social media and on the media are seeing consequences from their actions, some of them losing or quitting their jobs, and others facing massive public outrage over their positions. An Idaho drag performer, Tyler Phoenix Lenore Devereaux, was forced to resign from his position at Valley View School District in Boise, Idaho, after calling Charlie Kirk a Nazi and saying his murder was a patriotic act. The University of Mississippi and Middle Tennessee State University also fired staffers who made comments in favor of Kirk's assassination. DC Comics halted the production of its Red Hood series, an LGBT-friendly spin-off of Batman, after the comic's writer, Gretchen Felker Martin, published comments online celebrating Kirk's assassination. A website entitled Expose Charlie's Murders has been made to facilitate leftists facing consequences for their horrible, disgusting, depraved opinions. Far-left news outlet MSNBC also fired Matthew Dowd, who had once worked as a pollster for George W. Bush, and the Republican strategist Karl Rove for publicly justifying Kirk's murder. This is particularly repugnant to me, the idea that Charlie Kirk's espousal of his belief in God, his support for free speech, his support for capitalism and free enterprise, his support for the U.S. Constitution, and his desire to engage in a vigorous debate with those who disagreed, that these actions, that these thoughts somehow brought this horrific attack on him is it's a repugnant idea. It's an idea I entirely reject. Remember what the left told us when they were canceling us? Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequences. Well, now we're the ones doling out the consequences. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, so to speak. They created cancel culture, and now we are in a position where we can cancel them harder than they can cancel us. We should not take our feet off the gas pedal until those who hate this country are crushed and destroyed. Those who hate our Constitution, our freedoms, are no longer relevant in our political dialogue. Meanwhile, the Epstein emails were further exposed this week. A slew of emails sent by deceased pedophile Jeffrey Epstein have been released to the public by the House Oversight Committee, giving a window into the sordid affairs of the murdered sex pervert. The emails contained a spreadsheet itemizing almost 2,000 gifts, purchases, and payouts, totaling about $1.8 million to Epstein's various cronies and associates. Individuals listed on this gift list include former Clinton's top aide, Doug Band, Victoria's Secret founder Leslie Wexner, and attorney Alan Dershowitz. It also shows that Epstein's confidant, Ghislaine Maxwell, was in fact his right-hand woman, which contradicts the story she's been telling in recent months as she languishes behind bars, hoping for judicial leniency. Maxwell organized the pipeline of victims who were coerced into Epstein's patronage and stayed loyal to Epstein, even if he was prosecuted in Florida for sex with children. Interestingly enough, the email showed that President Donald Trump was removed from a VIP list for an event by Epstein personally, and then Maxwell and Epstein later said they believed that Trump was cooperating with authorities in helping build the case against Epstein in Florida. We know that this is absolutely true because I did 2 3-hour interviews with Virginia Roberts Giuffre, one of the handful of victims of Jeffrey Epstein who refused a multi-million-dollar settlement and decided to proceed with their lawsuit against him. From her sworn testimony, I can tell you that Donald Trump was never on Epstein's island, and that the one and only time she saw Donald Trump at Epstein's home in Palm Beach was for a charitable fundraiser, and Trump was a perfect gentleman. You won't read that in the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post. You won't hear it from Democrats who are trying to ignore the fact that it was Bill Clinton who went to Epstein's island. It was Treasury Secretary Larry Summers who went to Epstein's island. It was Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell who went to Epstein's island, not Donald J. Trump. You're in the Stone Zone with me, Roger Stone, and we'll be right back, so don't touch that dial.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone. President Donald Trump was on Fox and Friends this morning. And in that very long interview, which they produced without commercials, still parsing parts of it, among the more interesting things he said was that George Soros, the deep state billionaire, is likely facing RICO charges over his fomenting of mass left-wing terror. President Trump specifically had this to say.
But you know, they have professional agitators. They're professional.
Hey.
I had one the other night. I went into a restaurant and this woman stood up. I looked at her immediately. She had money. She wasn't serious. They get paid for it. They're professional, from Soros and other people. And we're going to look into Soros because I think it's a RICO case against him and other people. Because this is more than like protests. This is real agitation. This is riots on the street. And we're going to look into that.
It's well known that the Soros Network has facilitated the rise of Antifa in the United States and across the world. They have received tacit approval from the deep state as the FBI under former director Christopher Wray repeated their talking points endlessly. Well, those days are over. The assassination of Charlie Kirk is a watershed moment in this country. Conservatives have jettisoned the live and let live mindset. They understand that we are at war, and the only way it does not become a hot war is if entities like those run by Soros are put out of commission and its leaders are imprisoned when they break the law. This has always occurred to me that if you paid somebody and that person went online and advocated the violent assassination of President Donald Trump, you would be facilitating a crime. If I advocated the violent assassination of someone, they would certainly charge me. So how is it that Soros and his son continue many times with the facilitation of our tax dollars coming through USAID to these non-government organizations they control, have financed much of the violence against America? Certainly true in the 2020 Antifa and BLM riots that absolutely terrorized and burned down large sections of the country. So I'm glad to see the president is finally talking about holding people accountable. I think there should be a full investigation into Soros and his activities. It's not incidental that he cannot even go to his home country of Hungary where there's a warrant out for his arrest. So he's recognized in Europe as the bad guy he is. It is now fitting that President Donald Trump is going to pursue an investigation into Soros and his activities here in the United States. Coming back when we return, actor, singer, performer, patriot, producer, and show business legend Robert Davi joins me. Robert Davi is you've seen him in a number of classic films. All the young guys who work for me love Goonies. That's one of their favorites. But he was also in Die Hard, many, many others. He'll be back to talk to us about his memory of Charlie Kirk and why this moment is a watershed moment for him. We're right back with Hollywood superstar Robert Davi on the other side. You're tuned into the Stone Zone here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. I'm Roger Stone. You're not going to want to miss any of this. So please, whatever you do, don't touch that dial or stay tuned to us on the net. We'll be.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone. Joining me now, Robert Davi. He is an international, multi-dimensional star, an award-winning, prolific actor with well over 150 films to his credit. He's also a screenwriter, director, producer. Many not be aware of this, but an incredible jazz vocalist. Until you've seen him perform live, you really haven't lived. He's also a patriot. He was named by the Italian-American Civil Rights League last December as one of their Men of the Year. He is a man who says what he means and means what he says. Robert Davi, welcome into the Stone Zone.
Thank you so much, Roger. God bless you into this wonderful zone, especially this time of our lives.
It is a tragic time for America. I've had this feeling before. I had it as a schoolboy when I heard that John F. Kennedy had been shot and killed. I had it when I heard that that President Ronald Reagan had been shot. Thank God he survived. I had this same feeling when I first heard that Donald Trump had been shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, which due to the grace of God, he survived. Yet again, when he was attacked in West Palm Beach. But sadly, on this occasion, the assassin's bullet hit its mark, and our friend Charlie Kirk, one of the most influential young conservatives in history, was cut down in the prime of life. You sent me a truly moving, I guess I would call it a poem, I'm not sure, that you put together this morning. I was so moved by it that I asked you to join us today. Tell us your feelings at this moment and hold forth.
Well, I had, of course, as we all had, a shot to the solar plex, what happened, and it did bring us back to when we were kids with JFK and RFK and Martin Luther and Malcolm, assassinations because of political beliefs, especially in America, this country of ours. So I wrote these words, and I'll read them to you now, Roger, with your permission.
Please.
For your audience. Charlie Kirk gave his life not out of hate, but love. My first reaction was to go nuclear on the left because of what my dear friend and brother Andrew Breitbart called righteous indignation, and I felt that. The left in America has lied, spewed hatred, lawlessness, and violence, sedition. Charlie was a man of peace, truth, and courage. His whole essence was one of living a life based on Jesus Christ. While my own initial response was of rage, I bended knee and asked God for a way forward. I had a grandfather and a younger sister murdered. And while I wanted to avenge their deaths, my Catholic upbringing and prayer quenched my raging soul. My being violent was not the answer. I find myself feeling the same way over Charlie's murder. But prayer once again led me to a more powerful and positive place. I thought deeply of Charlie and Turning Point. He is a biblical figure, and his message was clear. To defile it with hatred would not honor him. What does honor him is a call to action. So I thought of Shakespeare's speech from Henry V, which is a call to battle. I rewrote it applying what Charlie Kirk stood for and was martyred for. Here, a call to action, a call for righteous indignation, but using truth, courage, and love as the ultimate weapons in the battle for not only the soul of America, but mankind. Thank you, Charlie, Turning Point, and all who understand. Do not be afraid, do not hate, but battle we must, as angels against the forces of evil who want to sow hatred, division, and violence. I hope you receive this with wisdom, the kind of wisdom Charlie gave the youth he so loved and gave his life. Now, these are inspired by Shakespeare's Henry V. Once more unto the breach, dear friends, once more. Or close the wall up with our righteous martyr's blood. In peace, there's nothing so becomes a soul as faith and humble love for God. But when the lies of tyrants tear our country apart, then rise with Charlie's words and zeal, ablaze with truth. Stiffen your hearts, summon the blood with strength of grace and faith. Let holy fire burn through deceit's dark veil. Let your spirit shine with heaven's might. Let it blaze like beacons through the fog of lies, bold as the cross that Christ himself did take. Unbowed by waves of malice and despair, now lift up your hearts in prayers and share in this cross we all must bear. Set your conscience free and bend up every spirit to its eternal height. On, you faithful heirs of Turning Point, whose blood is stirred by Kirk's unyielding creed. Sons and daughters who with him stood tall. From campus halls to nation's heart they fought. Now unleash your swords of truth to win the day. Shield his wife and children, cover them with love. Dishonor not his mission. Now attest that Charlie's vision lives within your blood. Be now a light to those lost in the dark. Be not afraid to teach them how to stand. And you, good souls, whose hearts were forged in America's promise, show us here the medal of your sacred call. Let us swear you are worthy of this fight. For none among you lack the spark of courage divine. the gleam of God's own truth within your eyes. Confront the scribes of media's false tales, the Hollywood deceivers cloaked in charm, and politicians with seditious lies, who lead astray the hearts of honest men. Their words, like venom, poison liberty's well, and purposely try to bring you all to hell. Reject their lies, and let truth's banner soar. I see you stand like warriors of the cross, straining for the charge. The fight is now. Follow his spirit. And upon this charge, try God for Charlie, Faith, America, and Turning Point.
Robert, I want to thank you for joining us with those moving words. I was moved by them when I read them this morning, and I really appreciate you making yourself available to share them with us today. At just 31 years old, Charlie Kirk was gunned down in what appears to be a premeditated attack by a lone shooter propped up on a roof. There's still many, many questions about his assassination. I'm not prepared to just accept the claims of the government because of the lies they told us in the past about the murders of JFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Dr. King, and others. This horrendous act of violence not only robs us of one of our most dynamic voices in the fight against tyranny, but it also exposes the dangers that lurk under the occurrence of radicalism, which has been fostered against us this past decade. Charlie Kirk's death makes him nothing short of a martyr. Kirk was not just a political activist. He was a beacon of hope for young Americans, deluded by the progressive indoctrination running rampant in our schools and our universities. I spoke at a number of his Turning Point USA events. I was honored to do so. I saw how he inculcated and educated young people about the virtues of free speech, free enterprise, capitalism, reverence to God. This idea that he somehow brought this horrible wrath upon himself because of his radical ideas, this is particularly repugnant to me.
Yes, me too, Roger. Roger, remember when Hillary Clinton called everyone a basket of deplorables? And the left has continued this on since Donald Trump put his hat in the ring because they knew he was a disruptor of the status quo and the corruption that buried us for decades. And this is what it leads to. And they have continued. They have continued these voices of hatred and division and violence. And they're walking it back now. It's strange to me how they're walking it back now. And we just have to go forward, not violence, but I hope it encourages people that have been silent, that have been frightened to speak because of being blacklisted or not being invited to a cool party or having Thanksgiving dinner. But to be able to carry on that tradition that Charlie did in terms of going into places that didn't want to have discussion and discussing. It's what you've been doing your whole life, Roger.
No, it's exactly true. He went right into the belly of the beast, but always in good faith, always up for a good, robust argument, but he always came in peace. They now try to demonize him. Oh, The Guardian, which to me is the most despicable so-called media outlet in the world, calling him a racist, a bigot, a white supremacist. We've heard it all before. When Hillary Clinton called us deplorables, that wasn't just an off-the-cuff comment. That was something that they had focus group, they had polled, they had tested. They thought that it would energize these mindless left-wing zombies who were voting for her and for the continuation of the corrupt regime that she represented. It is despicable, some of these voices on media and the attacks on, and also watching those exulting in his death. It's really nauseating. I've had a very hard time with this because I have spoken in these outdoor rallies. I've spoken to these outdoor events. I have had to travel with professional security. My own family fears for my safety. But I'm afraid...
Roger, they blew down your door in the middle of the night.
You have to tell me. 29 heavily armed FBI agents fully arrived in SWAT gear. Why? They could have called my lawyer. They could have said, oh, we're charging your client, bring him in. I certainly would have volunteered successfully. But no, they had to do this over-the-top raid on my home. And the worst part, of course, Robert, as you know, is the CNN camera crew. It's 25 feet from my front door. And when a local Fort Lauderdale police officer who'd been called in to back up the FBI tells the CNN camera crew that they have to go back behind a rope line with all the other media, roughly a half mile away from my home, where the rest of the media was kept at bay, he got chewed out by an FBI agent who said, no, you don't understand. They have special permission to be there, to capture my humiliation, to capture my wife being frog marched out of the house in handcuffs when she's done nothing wrong. So these over-the-top bully tactics, these Gestapo tactics, were utilized by the previous administrations, and they continue to be used against individual conservatives today.
Can I ask you something? What
Sure.
really gets me upset is Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom I don't know why people don't confront him more directly. I don't understand how he gets a pass. It's perplexing to me because he's part of their thing, part of their thinking, but yet there seems to be a certain kind of, and it's horrific.
The only thing you can say about him is he's got great hair. Other than that, there is no there. He's evidently running for president if he can squeeze out J.B. Pritzker, which who knows. But what's he going to run on? He'll do for America what he did for California? California, one of the most beautiful states in the nation, is a basket case in every regard. Homelessness, taxes.
I left it.
You
left it after 48 years because of this. But yet what happens is you have the Jimmy Kimmels and the Bill Mahers and the MSNBCs and the Hollywood elite. Bill Maher said, and he had Patrick Bet-David on the show, going that Gavin Newsom, I want him to run because he's a winner. And Bet-David said, well, what has he done? He wouldn't answer him. He says, it doesn't matter. He's a winner. But what has he done? This is Bill Maher, who pretends to be a nice liberal moderate that says something, but then yet is back in the tank for the most absurdities of in the political process. It's you know better than I. It's perplexing to me and frustrating. Yeah,
I've done Bill Maher's show several times. Actually, as a favor to a friend, I did his initial pilot for Politically Incorrect. And I can tell you right now, without a platoon of comedy writers, this guy isn't even faintly amusing. I mean, this guy can't do anything off the cuff. He'd be mute without that. And when you get there, they take you to your dressing room. It's very nice. You have a nice-looking young lady who's a page, takes you to your dressing room. They've got a star on the door with your name on it. It's very cool. And then his producer comes in and he says, so we're glad to have you on the show with Bill today. But Roger, there's one thing. What is it? Whatever you do, don't try to be funnier than Bill. I said, pardon me? Don't try to be funnier than Bill. I said, well, but Bill's working with a phalanx of comedy writers. And I use that old joke. I said, I live by my uncles. I live by my wits, my uncles, Leibowitz and Markowitz. No, I'm Italian. It's a Hollywood facade. This guy is not clever. He's not quick-witted. He's not entertaining. It's all on index cards.
Controlled. It's all controlled. Like it's absolutely controlled propaganda. And what it is that people, it just is, we have to have people that speak up and stand up and tell the truth continually, much more, that are inside Hollywood, that are, I know many people, very known, frightened. They won't say a word. And if they did, it could make a difference and have a turning point. But they don't. And no one confronts this Gavin Newsom. They'll do his show, they'll sit down, and I'm sure he's a charming guy, but you have to say at some point, Gavin, you're full of SH. You know what I mean? Come on, let's be honest. You ruined California. You ruined San Francisco. You gave over $1 billion contract to the Chinese for masks during COVID that never made a mask in their life, but did what they do, electric cars and electric buses. And that's right before they went into Afghanistan, a couple of days before the Chinese got the mineral rights. Nobody brings it up to this guy. Yeah, and what they're doing in Pacific Palisades with the fires, no reservoirs, when a Republican, Pete Wilson, in 1990 wanted reservoirs in California to collect trillions of gallons of rainwater, and they said no because of a spy fish that's a quarter of an inch that could be put anywhere. And the left did that in California, but yet it continues.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to The Stone Zone with me, Roger Stone. In The Stone Zone today, international multi-dimensional star Robert Davi. Don't go away because we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. I'm here with my friend Robert Davi, the international multi-dimensional star, actor, singer, screenwriter, director, producer, but above all, patriot. By the way, Robert, you are my favorite Bond villain of all time. Above all time. It's not even close.
Thank you.
My grandchildren are so impressed that I know you. It's beyond belief.
That's very sweet.
And all the young guys who work for me, that to them, every one of them, Goonies is their favorite movie of all time. They always say, "Oh, you got the Goonies guys coming back on."
Yeah, Goonies is the 40th anniversary of Goonies. I'll be in Orlando next week doing a comm. We're signing autographs. The cast will be there. It's actually going to be a lot of fun. But, Goonies, the kids love it, and it's been generational.
You also had the opportunity to work with Frank Sinatra. I mean, I had a chance to meet him when I was working for Ronald Reagan in his re-election in 1984, but
yes.
you knew him on a whole different level. To me,
yeah.
Old Blue Eyes, that is the gold standard. That's as great as it gets.
That guy, let me tell you, I always say for Italian Americans growing up, there were two figures, the Pope and Sinatra, and not necessarily in that order. Because he did so much for the Italian American immigrant community. He did so much against anti-Semitism and racial bigotry. And then his amazing contribution to the American songbook and America around the world, and his volunteer work and the billions he raised. And he was quite an individual, Roger. He was really... I did my first film with him in 1977. And he and I got together. He saw that I was a forceps baby because he saw the scarring I had. He goes, "You're a forceps baby." I says, "Yeah." He showed me his. And then he helped with the Dermablend makeup. He says, "Yeah, this will help your makeup." And we would just, he was Sicilian. And his mother was from Genoa. His father was from Sicily. And my dad was from Sicily. And anyway, over the years, we became very close until he died. And I was friends with his son, Frank Jr., who died a few years ago. It was, the daughters know. The daughters, because they did like me, and then my politics, they did not like me. They refused to play me on Seriously Sinatra. They had me on. I did Playing Favorites. And then when I went to Trump, they took my music down from Seriously Sinatra.
I want to thank you for joining us today. Folks, we have been joined by Robert Davi. He is indeed a superstar. He's also a man I'm very proud to call my friend. Honored again by the Italian American Civil Rights League this past December as one of their Men of the Year for his outstanding contributions to the culture and for his patriotism, the fact that he refused to be silenced about his love of country, his love of God, and his support for one Donald J. Trump. Robert, thank you for joining us today in the Stone Zone.
God bless you, Roger.
All right, that's about it for us, folks. I'm going to be digging into the assassination of Charlie Kirk even further. The government that lies to you, as they did about the murders of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King, and the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan, will lie to you about other things. I'll have more to report next week. Thanks for joining us today in the Stone Zone.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?